Hello, thanks for looking in. Difficult subject, this one, and it kind of upsets me, to be honest. But the exceptionally high numbers of rapes in the UK, and very few actually end up with convictions. And I think the whole arena is really sad. I mean, when you just stop and think that it's estimated that 1 in 4 adult women in the UK have been sexually assaulted. Um, it, it it just seems incredible, doesn't it? It just seems outrageous. Um, there's been a massive increase actually in reported rapes uh, this last year, six-fold increase. But partly, a lot of this is the government have pushed for improvements with the police and for there to be more reporting and more efforts for people being prosecuted for this sort of offence. Because very few actually cases actually go forward for prosecution. There've been a huge percentage have been dropped. I think the CPS have been quite cautious really and wanted only to prosecute really quite strong cases. Partly also because some men have been wrongly convicted of rape when they've been innocent. So the other problem is, of course, is that courts have been very, very full up of cases and there have been delays, and some of the victims just don't want to hang around all that time and have been dropping out. And only 2% of those prosecuted end up being convicted, roughly. So that's quite low. The odds are poor, and the number of rapes that occur in the UK are quite high, really, and about 84% of them are not reported to the police, which is awful, really. It's sad. But anyway, big news. This is very, very important news in that a serving Met police officer, yet another one, we've heard about the others. Maybe you haven't heard this, but he was recently found guilty of 8 sexual offences. 4 of these are rapes against women and of 2 sexual assaults. And 2 assault by penetration. So that's 8 sexual offences, 4 of which were rape. And he was found guilty on the 17th of April, 2026. And the court case has been adjourned until the 22nd of June this year. And that's when I think it's going to be in the media. Very serious that a police officer, serving police officer, has done this, and who can you trust? And this police officer is called Dion Arnold. He's aged 33. He's suspended at the moment. He hasn't been sacked yet, but he will be fast processed and will be. But wait until you hear what job he was doing. He was working in a special department dealing with abuse. Women who've been abused, domestic abuse victims. So he's a specialist officer dealing with domestic abuse, and it really worrying that he was doing this kind of work. And of all people that should understand, who have some sort of empathy towards victims of crime, he should be one. And you think, how on earth did he think he could get away with it? Well, it's reported that he targeted women who he thought would be vulnerable and who would not report cases to the police. He also said that he was a police officer and used that as a sort of way of saying, well, you can trust me. Now, none of the victims that he worked with were on his police work were victims of his offences, but most of his victims were dating app type people that he met on dating app, and they were really, really upset by his actions. So the case has been adjourned until the 26th of June, and during that time, an extensive probation report will be prepared upon him. And this is a really important report where it looks at the aggravating factors, the mitigating ones, looks at his background, his motives, does he have any remorse for his actions, that kind of thing. And, you know, I'll repeat it again, that clearly through his job, he's had contact with victims of abuse, not only vulnerable, but also who've been through terrible experiences. And having witnessed this and heard about what on earth, you know, why empathy? And again, you know, no empathy for his victims, again, because he pleaded not guilty. You know, he's pushing his luck. But bear in mind that only 2% of all prosecutions cases that are charged end up convicted. In other words, found guilty at court. So he was pushing his luck, wasn't he? So what happened after his arrest was the police seized his phone. I don't know if he used a false name and things like that. But one of the victims came forward and made a complaint against him. The police went and visited him in his home area. I think it was Surrey he was living in, although he's a Met officer. And they seized his phone and they found lots of contact details of various women. They contacted them all, and 3 unrelated women came forwards through the questioning, through these phone contacts, with allegation of rape and sexual assaults by Dion Arnold. Clearly, he deliberately targeted women who were vulnerable, who he thought would not stop him or report him doing his... Now, the other thing is, obviously, being an officer of the law, a police officer, he clearly knew about what the law of consent is. Some men claim, oh, you know, I thought I had consent and all this, but he clearly knew that he needed consent to go ahead with what he was doing and that he didn't have it. And the victims thought that they could trust him, but he abused that trust in a most appalling way. Now, one victim actually left a message on his phone and told him that he had totally destroyed and broken her. Another said that she had felt totally powerless and had no option but to submit, even though she didn't want to. So these are two of the victims actually told him that. I actually think this is absolutely appalling. I'm really worried about the number of rapes in the UK. I think it's terrible, and I think, you know, that how we grow up, we need to look at that and you know, learn greater respect and equality, really. And, you know, I feel for all victims of rape, male and female. It's awful, isn't it? For police officers to do it, I mean, I really think it'd be worth investing some time and effort, really, into profiling these offenders and the victims to see if there are any patterns there, to try and prevent this sort of thing happening in the future, particularly with the police. You know, I don't know if there's a way of spotting through psychological testing, of spotting these type of offenders before they even join the police, because we don't want people like this in our police forces. So no doubt, I'm sure that the judge is going to make an example of this offender, but do write in with the comments or anything that you know, but and put your thoughts forward about how can we reduce the volumes of this kind of offence, and how can we increase the numbers of convictions, really. Clearly victims need more support all around this, and the police need to step up their game, really. But credit where it's due, by going ahead and successfully prosecuting this guy is terrific, in my opinion. And it's put a notice out there that we will not tolerate police officers doing this sort of thing. And mark my words, I'm sure the judge is going to make an example of this man. Anyway, all the very best now. Cheers. Bye-bye.